Hello and welcome. My name is Bianca Said and I am at The Liberated Mother. I'm here to present to you the bonus class, which is the only real barrier to unschooling. Here we go. The biggest barrier to parents following through on their inspiration to unschool isn't about screen time, a lack of curriculum, socialization, or even a lack of support. It's that nagging fear that you're making a mistake. And once this fear takes over, all of your decisions are then made to reduce that very real fear and anxiety instead of facilitating learning. Parents who are called to unschooling experience this sense of lingering fascination with how unschooling works and experience a strong appeal to make their lives simpler, more harmonious, and just slower. It's a natural pull to something that feels more compatible with human nature, less pressurized, and just more enjoyable, more fun. In fact, unschooling appeals to most people, believe it or not, to varying degrees and at different points in their lives. They don't call it unschooling, of course, but humans always gravitate towards these things. Experiential learning, satisfying their curiosity, strengthening the passions that burn within them, and living in a daily routine that doesn't utterly exhaust them. We all want to feel seen for who that we truly are in all of our good intentions and reasoning. We all want to let go of control and trust the process. We all want to get lost in creative pursuits. And we all want to tend all of the areas of our life holistically instead of just surviving life inside the system mandated routine of requirements. Unschooling isn't extreme at all. It's just an extreme departure from school culture. So let's get into what actually stalls or stops an unschooling mom from fully trusting the process and thus getting out of it what its vast potential holds. How will I know if I'm doing enough? How do I know if they're actually learning? What if they fall behind? And how would I teach without teaching? These are some of the most common questions that parents who want to unschool have. These huge questions, which there are no objective answers for, unschooling or not, function to hold you back from ever having enough balls to start or truly commit. And it makes sense because it goes against all of the common sense and conventional wisdom that our upbringing conditioned us with and that our society reinforces. Tell me if you can relate to this scenario I put together for you. So, you get inspired, gasp of excitement by the concept of unschooling or self-directed learning. You decide that this is something you want more of in your life. You might not know exactly how to articulate it or describe the energy that you're so drawn to, but you just know that unschooling has it. If not just for the kids, but for you too. You've got this feeling that life is just too serious, pressured again, and stifling in general. The contrast between what you want for your family versus what the world wants you to do as a family can threaten to make your motherhood haunted by discouragement, disappointment, isolation, and depression. On the one hand, there's you. You're convinced that there's no better way to raise a child than unschool. And then there's the conditioning that our society has steeped us in, which creates the friction that you're constantly feeling between, wow, this is incredible, and will it really work? When it comes time to implement and reinforce this lifestyle you're so inspired by, you start to doubt it. Not only are you filled with preconceived beliefs about how learning works from schooling, the schooling you endured, but you're in a whole new world that can be tricky to navigate. You feel like you have no direction, structure, goals, backup, and it's so different from the mainstream way of doing things that you can't help but feel like you're the one missing something. You might even feel left behind because this lifestyle is such a pure and unadulterated way of life that just by its very existence, it contrasts the average American life in a stark way. It's not even an alternative, really. It's an opposition to the norm, which means that you've got to cultivate lots of self-motivation and self-trust in order to follow through. And when you do, though, you'll never feel more conscious and radically responsible. which you're in the right place, because the unschooling movement is the whole reason I do anything online. And I've helped many mothers cultivate this self-trust, self-motivation, and build communities that help make this lifestyle sustainable. Anyway, before these powers are developed, right, you're filled with these intrusive thoughts. I don't know if I'm doing enough. There's no structure. It stresses me out. They just want screens all day. I feel like I'm failing them. I can't tell what progress looks like. They resist anything that looks like learning, aka performing, improving. And I'm constantly second guessing this. But as has happened before, you push those aside and you try some unschooling. Some free, unstructured play, less scheduling, more just going with the flow. You make it a point to respect what it is a child wants to do during the day. You start to feel more ease. You get more rest. The kids are really into what they're doing. You start to feel a weight being lifted. Can life really be this simple? This easy? And as you're taking it all in, those insane thoughts creep back in. You almost feel like you've gotten away with something. And these thoughts are right on schedule because we were all trained to be productivity managerial machines, meant to be hustling all the time. So do not panic. This is a natural reaction to the system that we were raised in. But then this weird guilt starts to set in. You start to think that if things are this easy, I must be doing something wrong. I must be forgetting something. I must be neglecting something significant if I'm not struggling this often. The doubts start multiplying as you think about what you'll put on their record that you've got to turn into the state. You worry that they're not at reading level for their age. You start to think that they're spending way too much time having fun and not enough time learning how to be responsible. This is the state decided standards coming in to reinforce your self-doubt in a very logical way. You worry that the decision you've made is actually selfish, lazy, irresponsible even. Like you may actually fail them by taking this big of a risk in how you're raising them. You're seeing yourself through society's eyes. This makes you worried, stressed, and you feel lost yet again. Like you knew that there was way too much conflict with traditional schooling. You have way too many red flags with traditional schooling. But now you're feeling like there's way too much passivity in you letting go with unschooling. So then you, in your worried state, put some structure back into the days. You pull out that old grade 2 workbook that your son hates and tell him that he has to do a few pages today. You start over explaining things and correcting your kids a lot. You take the TV away. You tell them that you won't be able to take them to do fun things unless they commit to doing some sort of learning for the day. Your doubts and worries have turned into a teaching rampage. You feel like you just can't help it. You're overwrought with worry and honestly just the overwhelm of being responsible for such a big task. Raising kids up from birth to adulthood in a way that sets them up for maximum success, happiness, and health. It is a big job. So, after fighting and arguing for a few days or weeks, in this confusion of your home right now, in this push and pull, you reach a breaking point. You start to think about sending them to a program or some kind of school so you don't have to be the only one forcing them to learn. It's a lot. You're not only acting as teacher, but chef, chauffeur, housemaid, cook, amongst many other things. You look at the program options in the area. They're all really far, or they're really schooly and or expensive. You start to wonder why life can't be simpler than this. Why does it have to be so complicated? Why does everything have to feel so fucking hard? This is where the resentment of the village, the lost village, comes in. I mean, you don't want them schooled in the conventional way, but you also just can't handle the mental chaos of unschooling. So you start to feel like you're the only one who is having these issues and that you actually brought it upon yourself. Maybe you should get with society's programming. No, don't. Okay, so then as you disassociate into your phone for some relief, you see an unschooling reel pop up on Instagram. And yet again, you have that spark. You have that, it's so appealing to you. You think back to your original idea to unschool. But then you remember, Yeah, but it won't work for us. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my kids. When the reality is that you never actually embraced it for longer than a couple of weeks. Of course, you feel like it didn't work because you subconsciously sabotaged it and reverted back to your school conditioning. It's not that unschooling won't work for you and your kids, actually. It's that the anxiety keeps interrupting the process before you gain enough confidence, experience, and evidence to trust in it. Here are the two key solutions to starting or recommitting to unschooling that will interrupt or disrupt that really unhealthy pattern you have going, that cycle you have going of getting inspired, trying it out, only dipping a toe in or putting one foot in, keeping one foot out, and then backing up and being like, this doesn't work. These will interrupt that. Number one, you must have clearly communicated boundaries in your home. Typically, parents feel like they failed at unschooling because they're not comfortable with completely letting go of the reins. If you tried unschooling and that meant that there were no limits on anything, that would mean you've tried radical unschooling and not regular unschooling. Radical unschooling is when kids run the whole show and their parents disagree with placing limits on any of their choices. But unschooling is giving the kids as much freedom as the parents can possibly bear. There's a big difference. Unschooling should be scaffolded by clear, unique to your values, boundaries, and this will act as a natural deterrent to anxiety and chaos. So if you keep away the chaos with the boundaries, then you'll keep away the anxiety that naturally bubbles up when chaos comes or when you're steeped in chaos. You, mom, have to decide what appropriate boundaries are with your children and make sure that they know what they are. Then you have to commit to enforcing them and be able to reflect later and adjust as needed. It's a continuous process. Most of the unschooling life is setting boundaries, communicating them, enforcing them, then adjusting them and communicating them again. Boundaries are what will allow you to feel comfortable following your children's inspiration without letting them run the whole show. It's what will allow for that collaborative, relationship-led style of unschooling that's respectful of both the mother's wisdom and the child's brilliance. Solution number 2 is understanding the principles underneath unschooling so that you can commit. It's another piece of differentiating between radical unschooling and unschooling, because trust comes much easier when you understand exactly what it is that you are committing to and the philosophy that you're committing to. So the unschooling life requires a lot more than just having a break from doing things the normal way. You can't just embrace it when you feel like it and you're tired and then reap the fruits of its design. Unschooling is a long game that requires commitment and trust. It would benefit anyone interested in its philosophy to understand the foundational values that underpin it so that you can decide whether or not you agree with it at its roots. And since you're here, learning the foundational values will reinforce your interest in it and empower you with the logical and ethical validation you need to fully embrace it and continue it. So, can you agree to these 5 statements? I have 5 statements. And these are the most basic outline statements by John Holt, who is the leader, the recognized leader of the unschooling movement. In his 3 books, he has 3 books: How Children Learn, How Children Fail, and Teach Your Own. So here are the 5 statements. Children are born eager to learn. Agree or disagree? 2, learning is a natural consequence of living. Number 3, curiosity is more powerful than coercion. Number 4, real life provides meaningful opportunities for learning. 5, trust in the learner is essential. Now you can decide right here, right now, whether or not you're ready to commit to unschooling. Okay, so now we're going to go back to those pesky questions to reframe them. Could it really be that easy? Will they really learn what they need to know when they need to know it? Is it true that they don't actually need to learn everything during these young years like we did? Is it possible that in trusting that learning is happening all the time, I can take my foot off the gas and take a breath? Maybe even just coexist alongside them? Is it even possible to live a lifestyle so flexible and slow that our health and relationships are prioritized while all the necessary learning is happening underneath the surface without them performing and proving it to us? The real questions that we need to address as unschooling parents is, are we able to hold that amount of trust and keep reinforcing it? And is it worth enough to you and your family to do so? The real problem with most parents that want to unschool but say that they just can't is that their anxiety is so high that it holds most of the power in their family dynamic. Everything is driven from the anxiety that they're doing something wrong. So they unschool, but only halfway, with one foot in and one foot out, off and on throughout the years. A watered down, convoluted, confusing version of unschooling that can be described as, well, I yearn to unschool, but I don't trust myself nor human design enough to let go of control to allow natural learning to happen. Sadly, subconsciously, they're choosing to reject the faith, trust, and belief to facilitate an unschooling lifestyle and thus remain addicted to that anxious victimhood. This is what most parents will resign themselves to. Because it is true, society was built to function around the school system and a factory worker lifestyle for all. So, to resign oneself to that is much easier, less challenging, and it will definitely get you more social approval than something as off the beaten path as an unschooling lifestyle. But let's talk about you, because you're definitely not going to just resign yourself to the anxiety. You've made the choice to do something about the anxiety. You've decided that you won't settle for the bullshit conditioning that was instilled into you before you could consent to that set of beliefs and values. That's why you have so many unfinished books, courses, and printable workbooks. It's why even on your hardest days of being the default parent, the primary caregiver that seems to be on the clock all the time, you persist in protecting your children's experience of childhood by maintaining the high expectation that you're actually always there for them, that they have as much freedom as possible, and that they're not confined to an institution. It's why you're here right now in this class. You care a lot, and something inside of you is telling you to not give up, to keep fighting, that all of this initial hassle and mental anguish will be worth it. And you're right. Your gut is pulling you in the right direction. That's why you keep coming back to this conversation. You just need clarity, confidence, and momentum. And my relentless, persistent ass is here to help get that going for you. I'm not going anywhere. Like I said, my whole reason for doing anything online is the unschooling movement. Anxiety won't just go away because you took one class, read a few books, or just because you believe in unschooling so hard. The anxiety will gradually subside with repetition by seeing the same ideas from different angles, hearing other moms ask questions you're afraid to ask, by practicing a different way of thinking until it becomes your natural state, and taking lots of action on the path towards fulfilling your vision. Before today, you might have thought that the biggest obstacle to unschooling successfully was screen addiction, or a lack of curriculum, or limited socialization, or perhaps not having enough support. But hopefully you can see now that those aren't the things that keep pulling you out of unschooling. It's the constant second guessing and self-doubt. It's the feeling that you're one wrong decision away from ruining your kid's future. And when anxiety is the one in control, everything starts to feel confusing and frantic, and you get desperate, like we all do when we feel that way. You can't tell the difference between a real problem and a fear. You can't tell whether you need more structure or more trust. You can't tell whether unschooling just isn't working, or whether you've simply become uncomfortable before you've had long enough time to see it working. That's why I created the Prove Your Gut Right challenge. Not because you need more info. Most of you have plenty of information. You've read the books, listened to the podcast, watched the reels, just like I have. What you need now is enough clarity, confidence, and lived experience to stop abandoning yourself every time anxiety shows up. And over the next 8 days, we're going to work through the biggest fears that keep parents stuck in that cycle of inspiration to doubt, to control, to discouragement, and over and over and over again. We'll create the trust that is the most supportive educational approach for the brain, create the most powerful team for your child's future, which is your husband, you, and them. And I'll teach you about an effective and simple process that you can use to keep the How do I know if they're actually learning anxiety away by implementing relationship led goal setting and tracking? All three of these things create support and relief. Most importantly, you'll be in the company of other mothers who are wrestling with the same questions you're wrestling with, because anxiety grows in isolation and confusion. Confidence grows through trusting the process long enough for things to blossom, which, as you know, things do not blossom on demand. So if you've spent this entire class thinking, yes, this is me, or I just keep coming back to unschooling, I can't seem to shake this feeling that it's right for my family, then I want to invite you to spend the next 8 days with me. If you're ready for more clarity, confidence, and a stronger foundation than anxiety can provide, I'd love to have you inside the challenge. I'll put the link here and you can get $5 off, a little coupon code for attending. Just use relief at checkout. Hit me up with any questions you have, any feedback, continuing conversations, questions, whatever. I'm here for you, and let's talk about it.